Deep in the mountains of the Pacific Northwest, Marcus Reeves was looking for peace. As a former Force Recon Marine, he'd seen enough combat to last several lifetimes. All he wanted was quiet, but nature had other plans. On a crisp autumn morning, he encountered something impossible, a massive grizzly bear that didn't attack or run. Instead, it seemed to want him to follow. Against every survival instinct, Marcus did just that. Through dense forest and winding trails, the bear led him to an old cabin he never knew existed. Inside, scattered across dusty shelves and worn tables, were objects that made his blood run cold. Photos, letters, and military insignias that couldn't possibly be there. Each item seemed to whisper a story he wasn't ready to hear. What dark secrets could be so important that nature itself would intervene to reveal them? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Marcus Reeves stood frozen, his breath visible in the crisp mountain air. The grizzly bear, a massive creature that should have been the embodiment of every survival horror story, sat calmly 20 yards away. Its dark eyes held an intelligence that sent shivers down his spine. Not from fear, but from recognition. There was purpose in that gaze. His hand instinctively moved to his hip, where his K-bar combat knife rested in its sheath. The familiar grip brought a flash of memory. Sand, blood, and the sound of incoming fire. His squad pinned down outside Fallujah, the metallic taste of fear and duty mixing in his mouth. Marcus shook his head, forcing the images away. He'd come to these mountains to escape those memories, not relive them. The bear tilted its head almost quizzically, then rose to its full height. 9 feet of apex predator, yet its posture held. No aggression. It took 3 deliberate steps toward the dense forest before looking back at Marcus with unmistakable expectation. "This is insane," Marcus muttered to himself. Everything he'd learned in survival training, everything his instincts screamed at him, said to back away slowly and leave the area. Yet something deeper, something that resonated with the part of him that had always trusted his gut in combat, told him to follow. The bear moved forward again, maintaining that steady, patient pace. Marcus found his feet moving before his mind had fully committed to the decision. The creature led him along what appeared to be a game trail, though it was oddly well maintained for being so deep in the wilderness. As they walked, Marcus became aware of how his boots gripped the earth beneath him. These same boots had carried him through 3 tours, their worn leather holding stories of brotherhood, sacrifice, and survival. He'd kept them as a reminder, though of what, he wasn't always sure. Sometimes they felt like a memorial to the men he'd lost. Other times a tether to the person he used to be. The bear stopped suddenly, its nose lifting to test the air. Marcus froze too, old instincts kicking in. That's when he saw it through the trees. The dark shape of a cabin, weather-beaten but solid. The structure seemed to belong here, as much a part of the forest as the ancient pines surrounding it. The bear turned to look at him again, and in that moment, Marcus could have sworn he saw something familiar in its eyes, something that reminded him of the way his sergeant used to look at him before a crucial mission, expectant, knowing, trusting him to make the right call. His boots felt heavier with each step toward the cabin, as if they were trying to tell him something. Later, he would remember this moment as the last chance he had to turn back, to return to his solitary existence of trying to outrun his memories. But Marcus Reeves had never been one to back down from a mission, even one as strange as following a grizzly bear through the wilderness. The bear stopped at the edge of the small clearing that surrounded the cabin. It settled onto its haunches, assuming what could only be described as a guard position. Somehow, Marcus understood this was as far as his unusual guide would go. Whatever waited inside that cabin was for him alone to discover. Standing before the weathered door, Marcus looked down at his boots one last time. The leather was cracked and worn in exactly the same places as they had been the last time he'd seen combat, But something was different. There, barely visible on the heel of the right boot, was a marking he'd never noticed before. Or had he? 3 small notches arranged in a triangle. The same mark he remembered his father's boots having in that last faded photograph before he disappeared. The cabin's wooden steps creaked under Marcus's weight as he approached the entrance. Behind him, the bear remained motionless, its dark eyes fixed on his every move. The air felt different here, heavier somehow, charged with an energy he couldn't explain. It reminded him of those moments before a firefight when the world seemed to hold its breath. The porch boards were worn but solid, maintained despite their age. Someone had been here, and not too long ago. Marcus's tactical training kicked in as he surveyed the area. No cobwebs across the doorframe. Hinges, though old, showed signs of recent use. A swept pathway, all evidence that this wasn't some long-abandoned hunter's shelter. His hand reached for the door handle, then stopped. There, hanging on a nail beside the door, was a compass. Not just any compass, a military-issue model he recognized from his father's old stories. The brass case was tarnished, but intact, its weight familiar in his palm as he lifted it from its hook. The compass face was pristine beneath its scratched crystal, the needle swinging true to north. But it was the engraving on the back that made his throat tighten. J.R. Remember your way home, 1975. His father's initials. The year before, he vanished. Marcus ran his thumb over the engraving, memory fragments surfacing like debris after an explosion. His father teaching him to navigate by stars. The same compass appearing in photographs, always hanging from his father's belt. The last time he saw it, sitting on his father's desk the morning he left for what was supposed to be a routine training exercise. The bear huffed softly, drawing Marcus's attention. It had moved closer, now sitting just at the base of the steps. Its presence seemed less mysterious now, more purposeful, as if it had been waiting for him to find this specific item. "What else are you trying to show me?" Marcus whispered, more to himself than the bear. The door handle turned easily under. His grip, another surprise. No lock, no security in a place that clearly held significant items. The door swung inward with a low groan, releasing the scent of old wood, leather, and something else, gun oil and coffee, the same combination that had always clung to his father's clothes. Late afternoon light filtered through dusty windows, illuminating dancing motes in the air. The cabin's interior gradually revealed itself, a single room with a small kitchen area, a wood stove, and walls lined with shelves. But it was the large desk beneath the main window that drew his attention. Papers and maps were spread across, its surface held down by familiar objects, more military gear, dog-eared books, and what looked like old mission reports. The bear's shadow fell across the threshold, but it made no move to enter. Instead, it settled into a sitting position, as if standing guard. Marcus found himself grateful for its presence, an anchor to reality in what felt increasingly like a dream. He moved deeper into the cabin, the compass still clutched in his hand. Its weight felt significant, like a key that might unlock more than just directions. The needle swung wildly now, no longer pointing north, but rotating, as if pulled by some other force. When Marcus placed it on the desk, the needle suddenly stopped, pointing directly at a drawer built into the desk's right side. He stared at it for a long moment, the hair on the back of his neck rising, the same instinct that had kept him alive. Through 3 tours was screaming at him now. Whatever was in that drawer would change everything. The compass's engraving caught the light one more time. "Remember your way home." His father's voice seemed to echo in his mind, speaking those same words on countless training exercises. But now they felt less like a navigation lesson and more like a message, waiting 20 years to be delivered. Marcus's hand hovered over the desk drawer's brass handle. The compass needle remained fixed, unwavering in its direction. Outside, the bear huffed softly, almost encouragingly. With a deep breath, he pulled the drawer open. The contents were meticulously organized: files, folders, and a stack of yellowed envelopes bound with faded twine. But it was a photograph lying on top that seized his attention. The edges were worn, the colors faded to sepia tones, but the image remained. Clear, a young boy, maybe 7 years old, sitting on the shoulders of a man in desert camouflage. Marcus recognized the boy immediately, himself grinning widely, wearing his father's oversized boonie hat. But the man wasn't his father. The stranger wore the same Force Recon insignia Marcus would later earn, his stance proud and protective. Something about his eyes seemed familiar, like a half-remembered dream. He turned the photo over, written in precise military script: Marcus and Uncle James, Camp Pendleton, 1995. Uncle James? Marcus had never known his father had a brother. His mother had always said their family was small, just the 3 of them, until his father disappeared. The sound of scratching drew his attention to the door. The bear had moved closer, its massive form blocking most of the entrance. It made a low sound, somewhere between a growl and a whine, then deliberately looked toward the wall, to Marcus's left. Following the bear's gaze, Marcus noticed what he'd missed in his initial survey: a collection of framed photographs hanging in a precise grid. Moving closer, his breath caught. Each image told a story he'd never known existed. His father, and the man from the photo, James, in their dress blues at graduation. The 2 of them in jungle camouflage, arms around each other's shoulders, Vietnam visible in the background. James kneeling beside a much younger version of Marcus's father, both holding fishing rods. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Marcus whispered. To the empty room. "Why keep this secret?" The bear made another sound, this one almost mournful. When Marcus turned, he found it had fully entered the cabin for the first time, its massive form somehow not disturbing a single item as it moved. It approached the desk with deliberate steps, then gently nudged a stack of files with its nose. Marcus returned to the desk, his training warring with the surreal nature of taking directions from a grizzly bear. The files were organized by date, each one labeled with precise military efficiency. He pulled the earliest one, dated 1975, the same year as the compass engraving. Inside was a mission report, most of it heavily redacted. But certain phrases jumped out: deep reconnaissance, classified location, Agent Orange exposure, and unknown indigenous assistance. Paperclipped to the corner was another photograph, this one showing his father and James standing beside a man in traditional Native American dress. Behind them loomed a familiar shape, a grizzly bear, its size and markings eerily similar to his current companion. The similarities were impossible to ignore. The bear in the old photograph had the same distinctive white patch on its chest, the same intelligent eyes. Marcus looked at his ursine guide, really looked at it, and felt reality shift beneath his. "Effete, how long have you been watching over them? Over us?" The bear met his gaze steadily, its eyes holding decades of secrets. It moved to the window, looking out at the lengthening shadows, then back at Marcus with clear urgency. Whatever this cabin held, whatever mysteries it contained about his father and this unknown uncle, time was somehow a factor. Marcus returned to the drawer, but his hands were shaking now. The compass on the desk had begun to spin again, faster this time, as if responding to his growing understanding. Everything he'd believed about his family, about his father's disappearance, was unraveling. And somehow this bear, this impossible ancient guardian, was the key to it all. He spread the contents of the file across the desk, forcing himself to approach it like a mission briefing. His father had taught him that emotion could cloud judgment, that facts needed to come first. But as he sorted through the documents, one truth became devastatingly clear. His father's disappearance 20 years ago hadn't been an accident. It had been a continuation of something that began in this very cabin, with 2 brothers, a sacred duty, and a bear that defied explanation. Marcus gathered the scattered documents, his mind racing to connect the pieces. The bear watched him intently, then moved toward a small bookshelf tucked into the corner. Its massive paw, capable of crushing bone, delicately tapped the lowest shelf. There, partially hidden behind a row of military manuals, sat a leather-bound journal. The spine was cracked from use, the pages swollen with moisture and time. When Marcus pulled it free, something about its weight felt significant, like holding a block of condensed truth. Dad always said a Marine's most important weapon was his mind, Marcus murmured, running his fingers over the worn cover. The bear, huffed in what sounded remarkably like agreement. The journal's first page bore his father's distinctive handwriting. The things I write here can never be officially recorded, but they must be remembered. For Marcus, when the time comes. Marcus's hands trembled as he turned the page. The entries began in 1975, the same year as the compass inscription. James and I found something in Vietnam that defied explanation. The elders of the mountain village called it spirit walking, the ability of certain animals to guide worthy souls to hidden truths. We thought it was superstition until the bear led us to the cache of enemy intelligence. That discovery saved our entire unit, but it also marked us. The elders said we'd been chosen as guardians, that the bear would find us again when needed. James believes. I'm not sure I do, but I can't deny what I saw. The bear settled beside Marcus as he read, its massive form radiating an unexpected warmth. The journal entries continued, spanning years. 1980. James has gone deeper into the research. Says he's found similar stories in Native American traditions across the Northwest. The bear appears to him regularly now. He's building this cabin as a waypoint, a place to store what we've learned. 1985. The things James has discovered, impossible things. Places where the boundary between natural and supernatural thins. The bear doesn't just guide, it protects something ancient, something powerful. I worry about how far he's going with this. 1990. James is missing. 3 days now. The bear came to me for the first time since Vietnam, led me to his notes. This is bigger than we imagined. There are others who know about the bear, about what it protects. They're looking for ways to exploit it. James got too close to exposing them. 1995. Took Marcus to see James today. Had to make it look like a chance meeting at Pendleton. He can never know the truth. Not until he's ready. The bear appeared afterward, watching from the tree line. I swear it nodded at me. 2000. They're getting closer. James was right about everything. The bear isn't just one bear. It's a lineage of guardians protecting something these men would destroy if they found it. I've hidden James's research. Marcus must find it when the time comes, but only when he's ready to understand. The final entry was dated just days before his father's disappearance. The bear came to me last night. 25 years since that first encounter in Vietnam, and still it carries the same message in its eyes. James was right. We were chosen for this, but I waited too long to embrace it. Now, they've found me. If you're reading this, Marcus, know that everything, my disappearance, James's warnings, this cabin, it was all to protect you. The bear will come when you're ready. Trust it like your uncle did, like I should have sooner. Marcus closed the journal, his world tilting on its axis. The bear, his bear, watched him with those ancient, knowing eyes. 20 years of questions about his father's disappearance suddenly had context, if not complete answers. He looked again at the photograph of his Uncle James, seeing him with new understanding. The man hadn't been just another Force Recon Marine. He'd been part of something larger, something that had ultimately claimed both brothers. The bear rose suddenly alert, its head turned toward the window, ears twitching. Night was falling, painting the forest in deepening shadows, but something in the bear's posture suggested it wasn't the darkness that concerned it. Marcus felt it too, the weight of unseen eyes, the prickle of instinct that had saved his life so many times in combat. They weren't alone anymore. The bear's muscles tensed beneath its thick fur, a low growl rumbling in its chest. Marcus moved away from the window, instinctively seeking cover. His mind raced through combat scenarios, evaluating exits, defensive positions, potential weapons. A flash of moonlight on metal caught his eye, something tucked into a high corner shelf. The bear noticed his distraction and made a soft huffing sound, as if approving. Marcus reached up, his fingers closing around a familiar shape, a worn metal presentation case. When he opened it, the Medal of Honor gleamed in the fading light. The citation read, "James Reeves, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." Uncle James was a Medal of Honor recipient, Marcus whispered. How is this not common knowledge? The bear's only response was to move closer to the door, its attention still fixed on something outside. Marcus read on, the citation describing an impossible rescue mission in Vietnam. James had single-handedly saved his entire platoon, including Marcus's father, by leading them through enemy territory to safety. The official report credited his inexplicable knowledge of safe passages through hostile terrain. But now Marcus understood. The bear had been there, guiding them, just as it was guiding him now. A twig snapped outside, barely audible, but enough to make the bear's ears twitch. Marcus slipped the medal into his pocket, moving silently to the desk. He needed more time with the journal, with these documents, but combat instinct told him that time was running out. "They're coming, aren't they?" he asked the bear. "The same people who came for my father." The bear's eyes met his, and in them, Marcus saw not just intelligence, but urgency. It moved to the far wall, nudging aside a faded tapestry to reveal a hidden panel. Inside was a small safe, its door hanging open as if recently used. Marcus reached inside, finding a single manila envelope. The handwriting on it was his father's, but the words stopped his breath. Operation Spirit Walker. Final report. The sound of a car engine in the distance spurred him into action. He quickly scanned the document's contents. Details of a decades-long classified operation, references to enhanced natural guidance systems, and indigenous spiritual techniques. His father and uncle had been part of a secret program, studying the bear phenomenon, trying to understand and potentially weaponize it. But they'd discovered something else, something that had transformed them from researchers into protectors. The vinyl page held a handwritten note. "They don't understand. The bears aren't weapons, they're guardians. What they protect isn't meant for us to control." James knew. That's why they eliminated him. Now they're coming for me. Marcus's hands shook as realization dawned. His father and uncle hadn't disappeared, they'd been silenced. And now, 20 years later, the same forces were closing in, drawn by his presence in the cabin. The bear moved with sudden purpose, pushing Marcus toward a trapdoor hidden beneath an old rug. Its meaning was clear. This was an escape route, prepared long ago for exactly this situation. But Marcus hesitated. Running meant leaving behind crucial answers, documents that might finally explain everything. The bear made an impatient sound, nosing him toward the trapdoor more insistently. Headlights swept across the cabin's windows. The bear's fur bristled, its massive form positioning itself between Marcus and the approaching threat. In that moment, Marcus saw in its stance the same protective determination he'd witnessed countless times in combat, a warrior ready to defend its charge at any cost. "You protected them," Marcus said softly. "My father, Uncle James, and now me." The bear's eyes held centuries of such moments of guardianship passed down through generations. Marcus thought of his father's final journal entry. "Trust it like your uncle did." The crunch of boots on gravel outside made his decision. Marcus grabbed the journal and the Operation Spirit Walker file, then pulled open the trapdoor. Below, rough-hewn steps led into darkness. The bear nudged him one final time, its message clear. "Hurry, I'll be back," Marcus promised, not sure why he knew this to be true. The bear dipped its head in acknowledgement, then turned to face the dull, a living barrier between Marcus and whatever force had hunted his family for decades. As Marcus descended into the tunnel, he heard the cabin's front door burst open above him. Then came a sound that would haunt his dreams, the thunderous roar of an ancient guardian preparing for battle. The tunnel was narrow but well constructed, its walls reinforced with timber supports that spoke of military engineering. Marcus moved swiftly, guided by the beam of his tactical flashlight. Above, the sounds of chaos grew distant, shouts, crashes, and the bear's earth-shaking roars echoing through the ground. After 50 yards, the tunnel opened into a small chamber. Emergency supplies lined the walls: water, preserved food, ammunition, and a first aid kit. His father and uncle had prepared for everything, but it was a dusty wooden crate in the corner that caught Marcus's attention. Stenciled on its side were the words, "Letters, M.R." Inside, he found dozens of envelopes, all addressed to him. The postmarks spanned years, starting from just after his father's disappearance. He grabbed the earliest one, hands trembling as he tore it open. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then something's happened to me. The bear has finally come for you, just as it came for James and me. There's so much I couldn't tell you. About your uncle, about what we discovered, about why I had to leave. The truth would have put you in danger. But now you're ready, or you wouldn't be here." Another explosion rocked the cabin above. Dust filtered down through the tunnels. Timbers. Marcus quickly gathered the letters, stuffing them into his jacket. Each one represented a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of truth his father had tried to preserve. A second crate held more recent letters, these postmarked just months ago. Marcus's breath caught. They were written in his father's hand, not past letters, but current ones. His father was alive. The latest letter was dated just 2 weeks ago. "Son, they're getting closer. The bear warned us. Yes, the same one that's likely with you now. They've never stopped searching for what we protected, what James died keeping secret. I've left everything you need to understand in the cabin, but you'll have to piece it together yourself. Trust the bear. It's been watching over our family longer than you could imagine. There's a second cabin, further up the mountain. The bear knows the way. Find me there, but only when you're sure you're not followed. And Marcus, be careful who you trust. This goes deeper than just military secrets." Dad. Marcus's training kicked in, compartmentalizing the emotional impact of these revelations. Focus on survival first, process later. He could hear footsteps in the tunnel behind him. They'd found the trap door. A quick survey of the chamber revealed a second passage, this one sloping upward. Beside its entrance hung a topographical map marked with invisible ink, visible only under his UV flashlight. A series of waypoints led up the mountain, each marked with a small bear paw symbol. Marcus memorized the route, then eliminated all traces of his presence. As he moved into the second tunnel, a final letter caught his eye, half buried under supplies. This one was in different handwriting. Uncle James's. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then I failed to protect our secret. But the bear chose you just as it chose your father and me. What we found in Vietnam was just the beginning. The bears aren't just guides, they're guardians of something ancient, something powerful. Something that could change the world if it fell into the wrong hands. Your father wanted to tell you everything from the start. I convinced him to wait, to protect you. That decision cost us both dearly. The letters in this crate contain the whole truth, but be careful where you read them. They're always watching. Trust the bear. It's been protecting our bloodline since before the first European settlers arrived. There's a reason it chose our family. Your uncle, James." Voices echoed down the tunnel, growing closer. Marcus pocketed the final letter and moved swiftly into the second passage. Whatever secret had cost his uncle his life, had forced his father into hiding, was now his responsibility. And somewhere up this mountain, his father was waiting with answers. The bears. Distant roar reverberated through the earth one final time. Then silence fell. Marcus offered a silent prayer for his guardian's safety, though somehow he knew their paths would cross again. Right now, he had to focus on survival, on reaching that second cabin. The letters would have to wait. But one thing was certain. Nothing in his 3 tours of combat had prepared him for the truth he was about to uncover. Marcus moved through the mountain darkness with practiced efficiency, his boots finding secure purchase on the steep terrain. The moon cast just enough light to navigate by, though he barely needed it. 3 tours had taught him to feel the land more than see it. He'd put 2 miles between himself and the cabin, moving upslope through dense forest. No sounds of pursuit, but that meant little. The kind of people who'd chase a decades-old secret wouldn't be obvious about it. Finding a defensible position between 2 large boulders, Marcus allowed himself a brief rest. He pulled out the Vietnam squad photo he'd grabbed from the cabin's desk in his final moments there. The image was worn but clear. 12 men posed before a helicopter, his father and Uncle James standing shoulder to shoulder in the front row. But it was the background that drew his attention now. There, half hidden in the jungle behind the squad, was a familiar shape. The unmistakable form of a grizzly bear, impossible in Vietnam, yet undeniably present. "Same markings," Marcus whispered, noting the white chest patch. "Same bear." The implication staggered him. The creature that had led him to the cabin, that had fought to protect his escape, was the same one that had watched over his father and uncle decades ago. He turned the photo over. Names were written in faded ink. Squad 357, Special Operations Group, Classified Operation Waypoint, 1975. Below the names was a brief note: the day the bear first chose us. The day everything changed. Something clicked in Marcus's memory. A story his father had told him years ago, heavily edited, he now realized. A routine reconnaissance mission that turned into something else. The squad had been separated from their support units, deep in enemy territory. By all accounts, they should have died there. Instead, they'd found their way to vital intelligence that changed the course of the war in their sector. The official report credited exceptional navigation skills and lucky timing, but now Marcus understood. They'd had help. Just as the bear had guided him to the cabin, it had led his father's squad to safety, and to something else. Something important enough to kill for. A twig snapped in the darkness. Marcus instantly pressed himself against the boulder, weapon ready. Nothing moved in the shadows, but years of combat had taught him the difference between forest sounds and human movement. Someone was out there. He carefully unpacked one of his father's letters, using his body to shield the dim light of his flashlight. The bear led us to a cave system that day. Inside, we found something that defied explanation. Artifacts that seemed to pulse with their own energy, symbols that spoke of ancient powers. The local tribes had protected these sites for generations, using the bears as guardians. Our discovery was never meant to happen, but once we saw it, we couldn't walk away. James understood first. These weren't just artifacts, they were keys to something bigger. The bears weren't just animals, they were sentinels, chosen and transformed by whatever power lay hidden in those mountains. The military wanted to weaponize it. James refused. He said some powers weren't meant for war. That's when they started hunting us. The bears stayed loyal, though. They've been protecting these secrets since before recorded history. Now they protect us too, the only humans who know the truth. Another sound. Closer now. Marcus folded the letter and photo together, securing them in his jacket. His father's words painted an incredible picture. Secret artifacts, ancient powers, bears that transcended normal animal behavior. It should have seemed impossible, yet he'd seen enough now to believe. The snap of a rifle bolt being drawn split the night. Marcus dropped and rolled, just as a bullet sparked off the boulder where his head had been. They'd found him. A familiar roar echoed through the trees, deep, primal, and much closer than expected. His guardian had survived the cabin fight, and found him again. As Marcus prepared himself for combat, he felt an odd sense of peace. Whatever power had chosen his family decades ago in a Vietnamese jungle was still with him, still watching over him. The bear's massive form materialized from the darkness like a spirit, placing itself between Marcus and his pursuers. In that moment, he finally understood what his father and uncle had discovered. Some forces in this world went beyond military power, beyond human control. And sometimes the only way to protect such secrets was to become a guardian yourself. The firefight was brief but intense. Marcus moved with practiced efficiency, using the terrain and darkness to his advantage, while the bear created chaos among his pursuers. Shouts of panic and disbelief echoed through the forest as the massive creature materialized and vanished between the trees, its attacks precise and disorienting. When silence finally fell, Marcus found himself following the bear again, this time up a nearly invisible trail that switched back through the mountainside. The route was challenging, but he noticed something peculiar. Carefully placed markers, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. Notches in trees, small cairns, all bearing the same triple mark he'd seen on his father's boots. The bear stopped abruptly before what appeared to be a solid rock face. But Marcus's trained eye caught the subtle signs. Weathered hinges almost entirely obscured by moss, a hairline crack forming the outline of a door. The bear pressed its nose to a specific point, and something clicked deep within the rock. A biometric lock, Marcus whispered in disbelief. Calibrated to the bear? The hidden door swung inward silently, revealing a chamber carved into the mountain itself. Motion sensors triggered soft lighting, illuminating what could only be described as a tactical operations center, but unlike any Marcus had ever seen. The walls were covered in maps, topographical, historical, and some that defied normal cartographic conventions. Glowing lines crisscrossed these maps, forming patterns that seemed to pulse with their own energy. At the center of the room stood a large table with a three-dimensional terrain model of the entire mountain range. This is what they're looking for, Marcus realized. Not just the artifacts, but this place. The bear moved to one of the maps, indicating it with a deliberate motion. It was older than the others, yellowed with age, its markings hand-drawn. The title read, Sacred Sites and Guardian Paths, 1892. Red lines connected various points. Across the northwest, each intersection marked with a bear paw symbol. Marcus traced the lines with his finger, recognition dawning. These aren't just trails, they're ley lines, energy paths connecting the sites you protect. The bear huffed in apparent approval. Marcus had seen enough impossible things today to accept that this creature understood exactly what he was saying. A modern computer terminal sat in one corner, its screen showing active satellite imagery of the area. Someone had been here recently. Marcus moved to investigate, but the bear blocked his path, shaking its massive head. Not ready for that yet? Marcus asked. The bear's eyes held that same intelligent insistence he was coming to recognize. All right. I trust you. What do you want me to see? The creature moved to a specific map, this one showing the Vietnamese highlands where his father's squad had served. The same energy lines crossed the region, converging at a point Marcus recognized from the squad photo's background. The cave system, he murmured. That's where it all started. A journal lay open beneath the map, his uncle's handwriting filling its pages. Marcus read quickly, pieces falling into place. The bears aren't bound by normal physical laws. They move along these energy lines, serving as guardians for something older than human civilization. What we found in that cave was just one node in a vast network. The military thought they could harness it, control it. They didn't understand that the power chooses its own guardians. The bears chose our family for a reason. The energy lines. The locals call them spirit paths, run through our bloodline somehow. That's why they can find us, why they protect us. We're connected to whatever force they serve, whether we want to be or not. A series of photographs were paperclipped to the journal's pages, showing similar cave entrances across the northwest. Each bore ancient markings, and each had a bear standing guard in the image. "How many of you are there?" Marcus asked his companion. The bear's only response was to move to the terrain model, indicating a specific peak with its paw. The location was marked with the same triple-notch symbol from his father's boots. Marcus checked his map. "The second cabin. That's where Dad is?" The bear nodded, but its posture had changed. Tense, alert. Something was wrong. Marcus felt it too, that sixth sense that kept soldiers alive in combat zones. They weren't alone on the mountain anymore. The bear moved swiftly to the door, its message clear: time to go. But as Marcus turned to leave, a final map caught his eye. It showed the entire mountain range, with one area circled in red. The notation beside it chilled his blood. "Primary vault. All guardians converge here if compromised. The power must be protected at all costs." Marcus sealed the hidden door behind them, erasing any trace of their presence. The bear led him higher up the mountain, taking paths that seemed to shimmer slightly in the moonlight. The energy lines from the maps made visible in the darkness. A distant helicopter's thrum echoed through the valleys. They weren't using night vision equipment, meaning they didn't know exactly where to look. Yet, the bear guided him to a small cave entrance, barely visible behind a curtain of moss. Inside, the space widened into a shelter that showed signs of recent use: a sleeping bag, supplies, empty food containers. Someone had been here within the last day or two. Among the supplies, something metallic caught Marcus's light, a set of dog tags, crusted with old blood. He lifted them carefully, reading the embossed text. "Martinez, Carlos R. USMC." The name hit him like a physical blow. "Carlos," Marcus whispered. "Dad's best friend?" The bear watched him intently as memories surfaced. Carlos Martinez had been like an uncle to him growing up, always present at family gatherings, sharing stories of serving with his father. Until he wasn't. They'd said he died in a training accident, just months before his father disappeared. But the blood on these tags was wrong. They were standard-issue Vietnam-era tags, not the ones Carlos would have worn in his final years of service. Marcus pulled out the Vietnam squad photo again. There was Carlos, standing right beside his father and Uncle James. A folded paper was wrapped around the tags. Marcus recognized his father's handwriting immediately. Carlos discovered what they were really planning to do with the artifacts. They killed him for it, made it look like an accident, but he managed to get a message to James first. That's when we understood they'd never stop hunting us, never stop trying to weaponize what we'd found. Carlos died protecting this secret. His blood on these tags is a reminder of what's at stake. The bear growled softly, drawing Marcus's attention to the cave's entrance. Flashlight beams swept the forest below, getting closer. Their pursuers had found their general location. Marcus studied the tags again, noticing something odd. The blood pattern wasn't random. It formed a deliberate mark on the metal. When he held it at the right angle, it revealed a series of numbers. Coordinates, he realized. He pulled out the topographical map, plotting the numbers. They pointed to a location near the mountain's peak, not far from where his father's second cabin was supposed to be. The bear's ears twitched, picking up sounds Marcus couldn't hear yet, but he knew what they meant: multiple teams converging on their position. These weren't just random operatives. They moved with military precision, like they'd been training for this specific mission for years. "They never stopped looking, did they?" Marcus asked the bear. "All these years, they've been searching for what you protect." The bear's eyes held ancient wisdom and immediate urgency. Whatever Carlos had died protecting, whatever had forced his father and uncle into hiding, was worth killing for, worth dying for. Marcus secured the dog tags in his pocket next to the letters and photos. Each artifact was another piece of the puzzle, another link in a chain of sacrifice and protection that stretched back decades. His father, Uncle James, Carlos. They'd all chosen to become guardians of something bigger than themselves. Now that legacy had passed to him. The bear had chosen him, just as it had chosen them. The energy lines he'd seen on the maps weren't just paths of power. They were connections, binding guardians, both human and animal, in an ancient duty. A voice crackled over a radio below. All teams converge. Subject is traveling with a large animal. Use extreme caution. Primary objective is retrieval of the map room data. Secondary objective is the capture of Marcus Reeves, alive if possible. The bear tensed, ready to move, but its eyes held a question, waiting for Marcus's decision. He could run, try to escape into the wilderness, or he could follow the coordinates, written in Carlos's blood, continue the mission that had claimed so many lives already. Marcus touched the dog tags one last time, feeling the weight of brotherhood and sacrifice in their twisted metal. Lead the way, he told his guardian. It's time I lived up to my family's legacy. The bear led Marcus through a series of switchbacks, always staying just ahead of their pursuers. The coordinates from Carlos's dog tags pulled them higher up the mountain, into terrain where the air grew thin and the vegetation sparse. During a brief rest in the shelter of a rock outcropping, Marcus pulled out the classified mission report he'd taken from the cabin's safe. His tactical flashlight revealed its yellowed pages, stamped with multiple top-secret classifications that had long since expired. Operation Spirit Walker. Final assessment date: March 15, 1975. Location: classified personnel. Special Operations Group. 357 mission parameters. Investigation of anomalous navigation assistance provided by local wildlife, specifically Ursus. Octos, brown bear specimens demonstrating unusual behavioral patterns and apparent intelligence. Primary findings: subject bears demonstrate ability to locate strategic targets with 100% accuracy. Specimen behavior suggests coordinated action across multiple locations. Local tribal elders claim bears are spirit guardians, protecting sacred sites of immense power. Critical discovery: cave system located at coordinates, redacted, contains artifacts of unknown origin. Objects display unexplainable energy signatures. Local population has utilized bear guardians for generations to protect these sites. Warning: attempts to remove artifacts from protected sites result in immediate response from multiple bear specimens. 3 casualties sustained during extraction attempt. Bears appear to operate as coordinated security force. Recommendation: immediate classification of all findings, formation of dedicated research team to study potential military applications. The rest was heavily redacted, but a handwritten note in his father's writing had been added to the margin. They don't understand what they're dealing with. The bears aren't just protecting artifacts, they're guarding doorways to something older than human civilization. James saw it first. The energy signatures, the coordinated behavior, the impossible abilities. These aren't just animals. They're sentinels, chosen by whatever force lies behind those doorways. The military wants to weaponize it, turn the bears into some kind of supernatural special forces. But they're missing the point. We weren't meant to find these sites. The bears led us there as a warning, showing us what needed to be protected from us, not by us. Carlos died trying to destroy the research. James disappeared protecting the map room. Now they're closing in on me. But as long as the bears still guard the doorways, there's hope. They chose our family for a reason. The energy flows through. Our bloodline somehow. That's why they can find us, why they trust us. Marcus, if you're reading this, you're probably with one of them now. Trust it. The bears remember everything. They're not just guardians of places, but of knowledge, of truth. They'll show you what you need to know when you're ready to understand it. P.S. The cabin they think I died in? It was a decoy. Follow the bear. Find the real cabin. I'll be waiting. Marcus's hands trembled as he read the last line. The official story that his father had died in a cabin fire during a training exercise had been a carefully orchestrated deception. His father was alive, hiding somewhere on this mountain, protecting whatever ancient secret the bears had shown them in that Vietnamese cave. The bear suddenly lifted its head, alert. A moment later, Marcus heard it too, the distinctive whop-whop of helicopter rotors, much closer now. But something was wrong. The bear's behavior had changed, its muscles tensing in a way Marcus hadn't seen before. He pulled out the map, checking their position against Carlos's coordinates. They were close to the second cabin, but the bear was urging him in a different direction, toward a sheer cliff face that seemed to pulse faintly in the darkness. A new sound cut through the night, another bear's roar, but different from his companions. This one carried pain, anger, and something else, warning. His guardian's response was immediate and urgent. Instead of moving up toward the cabin, it began herding Marcus toward the cliff. The helicopter sounds were joined by gunfire and more roars, multiple bears, multiple locations. They found the primary vault. Marcus realized with sudden clarity, that's what the other bears are defending. His guardian's eyes confirmed it. The choice was clear. Continue to the cabin and his father, or follow the bear to whatever ancient doorway needed protecting. The helicopter rotors grew louder, searchlights sweeping the mountainside. Marcus thought of Carlos's blood-stained dog tags, of Uncle James's sacrifice, of his father's decades of hiding. They had all chosen to become guardians of something greater than themselves. Now it was his turn to make the same choice. Marcus chose the bear's path, running toward the cliff face that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. Behind them, the sounds of combat echoed across the mountainside. More bear roars joining the chaos of helicopter rotors and gunfire. The cliff's surface wasn't as sheer as it had appeared from a distance. Ancient handholds had been carved into the rock, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. The bear led him to what seemed like a dead end, then pressed its nose against a specific point in the rock wall. A seam appeared, widening into a narrow passage. Inside, the air felt different, charged with the same energy he'd sensed along the bear's paths. The passage opened into a small chamber, its walls covered in petroglyphs depicting bears leading humans to sacred sites. At the chamber's center stood a stone altar, and on it lay a weathered leather pouch decorated with intricate beadwork. The bear nudged him toward it. When Marcus lifted the medicine pouch, something inside shifted, producing a soft chiming sound. He carefully opened it, revealing its contents, a handful of crystalline stones that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the energy lines he'd seen on the maps, and a piece of paper covered in his uncle's precise handwriting. The tribal elders called them spirit stones, keys to the doorways the bears protect. Each one resonates with a different site, a different aspect of the power they guard. The bears aren't just animals who became guardians, they're guardians who chose to take animal form. The stones help them maintain their connection to whatever lies behind those doorways. The military thought they could use the stones to control the bears, turn them into weapons. They didn't understand that the bears choose their own allies. They recognize bloodlines that carry traces of the old power, families who lived near the sacred sites for generations, who learned to walk the spirit paths. Our family's connection goes back further than we knew. The bears recognized it in Vietnam, led us to that cave because they knew we could be trusted, or maybe because they knew we'd be needed someday. The elders warned us. Dark times are coming. The doorways are weakening. The bears need human guardians again. People who can walk between worlds like they do. That's why they're gathering, why they're calling in all their chosen allies. Keep this pouch close. The stones will guide you when the bears cannot. More gunfire erupted outside, closer now. Marcus's guardian grew agitated, clearly wanting him to hurry. He secured the medicine pouch inside his jacket, feeling the stone's warmth against his chest. The bear led him deeper into the chamber, to where the petroglyphs seemed to move in the dim light. They told a story, bears emerging from doorways of light, choosing human partners, protecting sacred sites from those who would misuse their power. One image showed a bear and human merging, becoming something between worlds. Below it, words had been carved in English. To guard the doorways, one must become like the guardian. Marcus's bear pressed its forehead against his chest, right where the medicine pouch rested. A surge of energy passed between them, not electricity, but something older, more primal. In that moment, Marcus understood what the petroglyphs meant. The bears weren't just guides or protectors, they were teachers, showing their chosen humans how to access the same power they wielded. The stones in the pouch grew warmer, their energy synchronizing with the bear's presence. Marcus felt his awareness expanding, connecting with something vast and ancient. He could sense the other bears on the mountain, feel their determination as they defended the primary vault. More than that, he could feel the doorways they protected, portals to places beyond normal human understanding. His guardian's eyes met his, and for the first time, Marcus truly saw what looked back at him. Not just an intelligent animal, but an ancient being that had chosen this form, chosen his family, chosen him. The bears weren't just protecting doorways to other places. They were doorways themselves, bridges between the physical world and something far more profound. A massive explosion rocked the mountain. The bear's head snapped up, its message clear. The vault's defenses had been breached. Whatever his father and uncle had spent decades protecting was now in immediate danger. Marcus touched the medicine pouch, feeling the power of generations of guardians flowing through the stones. "Show me what to do," he said to his companion. "Show me how to become like you." The stones in the medicine pouch grew hotter, their energy pulsing in sync with Marcus's heartbeat. His guardian bear pressed closer, its presence somehow both physical and ethereal, as if existing in two worlds at once. The power flowing between them felt like a live current, ancient and wild. Another explosion shook the mountain. Through his newly awakened senses, Marcus felt the other bear's determination tinged with desperation. The vault's outer defenses had fallen, and the inner barriers were weakening. His hand found the last unopened letter from his father, the one he'd grabbed from the cabin just before their escape. The bear nodded, indicating this was the moment to read it. "Dear Marcus, if you're reading this, then you've found the medicine and pouch and felt its power. The bears have shown you what they really are, what they've been trying to teach our family for generations. I should have prepared you for this, should have told you everything from the start, but I thought I could protect you by keeping you away from it all. I was wrong. The power chooses its own guardians. The bears recognized that power in our bloodline long before we understood what it meant. What happened in Vietnam wasn't chance. They led us to that cave because they knew we'd be needed for what's coming. The doorways are weakening. The barriers between worlds growing thin. What lies behind them isn't meant for human hands to wield, human minds to comprehend. That's why the bears chose their form, to protect the doorways while remaining connected to both sides. Your uncle, James, understood first. He learned to walk the spirit paths, to see through the bear's eyes. That's how they found him, why they had to eliminate him. He died protecting not just the secret, but the very nature of reality itself. I've spent 20 years searching for a way to seal the doorways permanently, to end this threat once and for all. The second cabin holds everything I've discovered, research, artifacts, the key to closing the portals forever. But I realize now that was never the answer. The doorways aren't meant to be sealed. They're meant to be protected, guided, understood. That's why the bears keep choosing guardians, keep teaching us their ways. Some powers aren't meant to be controlled or contained, only respected and preserved. Son, I know you're facing an impossible choice right now. The vault is under attack, and I'm waiting in the cabin with information that could change everything. But remember what the bears have been teaching us all along. True guardianship isn't about control. It's about understanding when to act and when to trust in powers greater than ourselves. Whatever you choose, know that I'm proud of you. You've carried our family's legacy better than I ever did, even when you didn't know you were carrying it. Trust the bear. Trust yourself, and most importantly, trust the power that's been flowing through our bloodline since before we had words to describe it. All my love, Dad. Marcus folded the letter carefully, tucking it away with the others. The medicine pouch stones thrummed against his chest, their energy building towards something momentous. His guardian bear's eyes held both question and certainty. The final choice was his, but the path was clear. Through his expanded awareness, Marcus could sense the attacking forces breaching the vault's inner chambers. Whatever ancient power lay within called out to him, not in words, but in pulses of pure energy that resonated with the stones against his chest. The second cabin waited above, holding his father and the knowledge of 20 years of research. The chance to finally understand everything, to reunite with the man he'd thought dead for so long. But the bears hadn't chosen their family for answers. They'd chosen them for moments exactly like this. Marcus touched the medicine pouch one last time, feeling generations of guardianship flowing through its contents. His father's words echoed. In his mind, true guardianship isn't about control. We protect the doorways, Marcus said to his bear companion. Not because we understand them, but because we understand why they need protecting. The bear's answering growl held approval and readiness. The time for questions and revelations had passed. Now was the time for action. Marcus felt the power, building within him, the barrier between human and guardian growing thinner. "Show me how," he whispered. "Show me how to become what you are." The bear pressed its forehead to his chest one final time, and the world shifted. The transformation wasn't physical so much as perceptual, like gaining an entirely new sense while retaining all the others. The world around Marcus shifted into sharper focus, revealing layers of reality he'd never known existed. The energy. Lines he'd seen on the maps now pulsed visibly through the mountain, connecting the sacred sites in a web of ancient power. His guardian bear's presence expanded in his awareness, their consciousnesses overlapping without merging. Through their connection, Marcus understood what needed to be done. But first, they had to secure something crucial. They moved through the tunnels with fluid grace, Marcus's military training combining with his new awareness to navigate the complex network. The bear led him to a chamber he somehow knew existed, but had never seen. A records room, hidden far deeper than the map room they'd visited earlier. Inside, protected by both physical and metaphysical barriers, sat a simple strongbox. The bear nudged him toward it, and Marcus felt the stones in the medicine pouch respond, their energy providing the key to open it. Within lay a single document, a land deed dated 1892, granting ownership of the entire mountain range to a trust. The names listed as trustees began with Native American elders and continued through generations, eventually including his Uncle James, his father, and finally, added in recent handwriting, his own name. A note was paperclipped to the deed. The land must remain protected. The trust ensures that no government, no corporation, no military force can legally claim this territory. The bears chose this mountain for a reason. The doorways are strongest here, the barriers between worlds thinnest. As long as the trust remains intact, the sacred sites are legally untouchable. I've added your name, Marcus. The bears confirmed you were ready. The trust now passes to you, along with everything it protects. The military can try to seize the artifacts, try to access the doorways, but they can't take the land itself, not without exposing their entire operation to public scrutiny. Use this if you need it. Sometimes the best defense isn't force, but the simple power of human law. Dad, Marcus secured the deed inside the medicine pouch, feeling the stone's energy embrace and protect it. Through his enhanced senses, he detected movement above. The assault team had breached the vault's final chamber. But something else was happening too. His guardian's consciousness shared the knowledge. Bears were converging on the mountain from all directions, drawn by the threat to the primary doorway. This wasn't just a local response. This was an ancient defense protocol activating. Guardian. Bears from sacred sites across the continent were answering the call. Another explosion rocked the mountain, but this one felt different. Through his connection with the bear, Marcus understood. The assault team had discovered one of the smaller doorways, torn through its protective barriers. The surge of otherworldly energy that escaped sent ripples through the entire network of sacred sites. They needed to move now, but Marcus hesitated. The deed in his medicine pouch represented more than just legal protection. It was physical proof of the trust placed in his family by both human and supernatural guardians. Generations of protectors working together to preserve something beyond human understanding. His bear guardian pressed close, sharing images through their connection. His father and uncle discovering their abilities in Vietnam. Carlos sacrificing himself to protect the secret. James learning to walk the spirit paths, his father maintaining his vigil all these years. Each of them had added to the legacy, strengthened the trust, prepared the way for this moment. The medicine pouch stones pulsed with renewed energy, and Marcus felt the power of that legacy flow through him. He wasn't just a soldier anymore, or even just a guardian. He was a bridge between worlds, chosen by forces older than civilization to stand watch over the doorways between realities. Through their shared consciousness, his bear companion showed him one final image: the vault. Above, where desperate men sought to control powers they couldn't comprehend. But beyond them, through the weakened doorway, something else was stirring. Ancient forces responding to the intrusion, powers that could destroy everyone on the mountain if not properly contained. The deed was secure, the legacy preserved. Now came the true test of guardianship. Not just protecting the doorways from human interference, but protecting humans from what lay behind them. Marcus felt the approaching bears, dozens of them, their combined power building like a gathering storm. His guardian's consciousness merged more fully with his own, showing him how to channel that power, how to become the guardian he was meant to be. The mountain trembled as reality itself began to buckle around the breached doorway. The time for preparation was over. Now came the moment to prove worthy of the trust placed in him, to truly earn his place in the ancient legacy of the Guardians. The ascent to the vault felt like moving through multiple realities at once. Marcus's military training guided his physical movement, while his newly awakened senses tracked the pulse of energy flowing through the mountain. His bear guardian moved in perfect sync with him, their shared consciousness navigating both natural and supernatural terrain. He touched his own military ID in his pocket, his last tangible connection to his old life. Through their bond, the bear shared understanding. Some bridges couldn't be uncrossed, some transformations couldn't be undone. The man who had come to these mountains seeking peace was gone, replaced by something both more and less than human. They emerged into chaos. The vault's massive doors had been blown open, their ancient protective symbols shattered. A dozen armed men in advanced tactical gear were scattered around the entrance, their weapons trained on the otherworldly light spilling from within. But it was their commander who drew Marcus's attention, a face he recognized from his father's old photographs. "Colonel Richards," Marcus said, his voice carrying new authority. "Still hunting powers you don't understand?" The man turned, his expression shifting from surprise to calculated assessment. "Marcus Reeves, we wondered if you'd show up. Your father proved uncooperative when we found him 20 years ago. Let's hope you're more reasonable." Through the bear's shared memories, Marcus saw the truth. Richards had been there in Vietnam, had seen the bear's power firsthand. He'd spent decades trying to harness it, never understanding that the power chose its own vessels. "The doorway is destabilizing," Marcus warned, feeling the energy patterns fracturing around them. "You've broken barriers that took centuries to create. We've broken through to the next level of human potential," Richards countered. "Do you think we don't know what these sites are, what they can offer? Your father and uncle were too afraid to reach for it, but imagine an army of enhanced soldiers moving between realities, wielding powers beyond human limitation. The Bear's consciousness flooded Marcus with images of previous attempts, other military forces through history who had tried to seize the doorway's power. Each attempt had ended in disaster, the barriers between worlds requiring balance, not conquest. More bears were arriving, their massive forms materializing from the shadows. Marcus felt their combined power building, preparing for what needed to be done. The medicine pouch stones thrummed against his chest, resonating with ancient purpose. "Last chance," Marcus said, his voice carrying echoes of other guardians through time. "Pull back, close the doorway. Some powers aren't meant for human hands." Richards raised his weapon. "You sound just like your father. Take him down. Secure the doorway." But the soldiers hesitated. Through his enhanced senses, Marcus saw what they saw, his form shifting between human and something else, the bear's energy flowing through him, reality itself bending around their combined presence. The destabilized doorway pulsed, its light taking on a dangerous intensity. The bears moved in perfect coordination, forming a circle around the vault entrance. Marcus felt their power connecting, forming something older than human civilization. A barrier between worlds that had existed since the first Guardians took their oath. "You want to see what these doorways really hold?" Marcus asked, the medicine pouch stones burning with accumulated power. "Let me show you." He reached out with his newfound abilities, accepting the bear's energy, becoming a conduit for forces that defied human comprehension. The soldiers stumbled back as reality rippled around them, catching glimpses of what lay beyond the doorway, truths too vast for mortal minds to contain. Richards fired, but the bullet passed through where Marcus had been, reality itself bending around him. The bears roared in unison, the sound carrying centuries of warning and protection. "The doorways aren't weapons," Marcus said, his voice resonating with inhuman power. "They're reminders of how little we truly understand, how much we still need. Guardians to protect us from our own ambition." The combined energy reached its peak. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus and his guardian bear began the ancient ritual of restoration, calling on powers that had chosen them to heal what human hands had broken. The ritual of restoration took hours, the combined power of dozens of guardian bears channeling through Marcus to repair the damaged doorway. Reality itself seemed to flex and heal around them, ancient barriers reforming under the guidance of powers older than time. When it was over, Marcus found himself kneeling in the vault entrance, surrounded by the tools that would mark his new purpose. Garden implements and restoration supplies left by previous guardians. The weapons and tactical gear of Richard's team lay scattered and empty. Their owners had fled after witnessing truths their minds couldn't process. His bear guardian pressed close, sharing memories of other restorations through time. This wasn't the first doorway humans had tried to breach, nor would it be the last. The tools around them represented the constant work of maintenance and protection, both physical and spiritual. "They'll try again, won't they?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. Through their bond, he understood that this was the eternal cycle, human ambition reaching for powers beyond its grasp, guardians rising to protect humanity from its own destructive potential. The other bears began to depart, returning to their own sacred sites across the continent, but their connection remained. Marcus could feel them through the network of energy lines, a web of protection spanning the wilderness. Each bear carried a piece of the same ancient power, each human guardian chosen to help maintain the balance. Marcus gathered the garden tools, understanding their deeper significance. The work of protection wasn't all mystical battles and dramatic confrontations. Much of it was simple maintenance, tending the land, preserving the sites, keeping the paths clear for those who needed to find them. His enhanced senses detected a familiar presence approaching. Through the bear's memories he recognized the energy signature, his father, moving along one of the spirit paths. But there would be time for that reunion later. First, they had work to do. For 3 days, Marcus and his guardian bear worked to restore the vault and its surroundings. They cleared debris from the explosion, replanted damaged vegetation, and reinforced the natural camouflage that helped keep the site hidden. Other bears appeared occasionally, bringing supplies or lending their energy to particularly difficult repairs. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus learned the true purpose of the Guardian sites. They weren't just doorways to other realities. They were pressure points, places where the membrane between worlds could be maintained and regulated. Too much closure would stifle the flow of natural energy the world needed. Too much opening would allow chaos to spill through. The tools became extensions of his new role, shovels for maintaining the physical paths that mirrored spiritual ones, pruning shears for managing the growth that helped conceal sacred sites, rakes and hoes for tending the land that housed such. Ancient power. Each task was both mundane and mystical, physical work that strengthened metaphysical barriers. On the fourth day, as Marcus cleared invasive vines from an old marker stone, his bear guardian shared a deeper truth. The tools themselves were artifacts of power, passed down through generations of guardians, imbued with the energy of countless maintainers of the sacred sites. They were as important in their way as the medicine pouch stones, representing the practical foundation that supported all spiritual work. Other veterans began to find their way to the mountain, drawn by forces they didn't yet understand. Marcus felt the bears' approval. Some would become guardians themselves, chosen by the same power that had chosen his family. Others would simply find healing in the presence of ancient energies, their war-torn spirits settling in the presence of something older than human conflict. His father's words from the letter made new sense now. True guardianship isn't about control. The tools around him proved that truth. You couldn't control these powers, these sacred places. You could only tend them, protect them, maintain the delicate balance they required. Through their bond, Marcus felt his bear guardian's satisfaction. This was what the transformation had been preparing him for. Not just dramatic moments of power, but the steady, dedicated work of true protection. The tools weren't just implements. They were symbols of commitment, of the practical foundation that all spiritual guardianship required. As the sun set on their fourth day of restoration, Marcus felt the repaired doorway pulse with healthy energy. The barrier between worlds had been restored, but more importantly, his own understanding of his role had shifted. He wasn't just a warrior anymore, called to defend in moments of crisis. He was a guardian in the truest sense, a caretaker of places where reality itself needed tending. The reunion with his father happened naturally, like the confluence of two streams joining into a river. John Reeves emerged from the forest at dawn on the fifth day, his own guardian bear walking beside him. The years of separation fell away. As father and son embraced, their shared connection to the ancient powers making words unnecessary. Marcus started a new journal that day, understanding now why his father and uncle had documented everything. Some knowledge needed to be preserved, passed down to future guardians who would continue their work. His first entry captured the moment of transformation, the point where his old life had merged with something larger. The bears choose us because they see something in our bloodline, not just the capacity to witness impossible things, but the wisdom to protect them. What we guard isn't just doorways between worlds, but the very balance that keeps those worlds separate and whole. His father added his own notes to the journal, filling in the gaps of the past 20 years. The second cabin had become a repository of knowledge, gathering the experiences of guardians across generations. Now, it would serve a new purpose, a training ground for others who heard the call. The first new arrival was a young Marine, fresh from Afghanistan, drawn to the mountain by dreams of bears and doorways. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus's guardian confirmed what he sensed. Another potential guardian, carrying the same markers in his spirit that the bears had recognized in the Reeves family. More came as autumn deepened into winter. Veterans mostly, their combat-trained senses already attuned to realities others couldn't perceive. Each one was tested by the bears, guided to different aspects of guardianship that suited their abilities. Some would become full guardians, able to walk the spirit paths. Others found their calling in maintaining the physical sights, their practical work just as vital to the greater purpose. Marcus's bear guardian shared memories of similar gatherings through history, times when the doorways needed extra protection, when more guardians had to be called and trained. The cycle was ancient. Power awakening, humans discovering it. Guardians rising to maintain the balance. The journal filled with new observations, not just about the supernatural aspects of their work, but about healing itself. The same energy that powered the doorways had therapeutic properties when properly channeled. Veterans who came seeking answers found something better: restoration, purpose, connection to something greater than their individual struggles. His father's presence complemented his own role perfectly. John had spent 20 years studying the deeper mysteries of the doorways, understanding connections that even the bears respected. Together, they began developing a curriculum of sorts, a way to train new guardians that honored both human and supernatural wisdom. The bears themselves seemed to approve of this evolution. More of them appeared as winter approached, each bringing their own chosen humans to learn and serve. The mountain hummed with ancient power, but now it was properly channeled, directed by those who understood its true purpose. Marcus added his own discoveries to the growing body of knowledge. His military experience provided insights into protecting the sites using modern techniques that didn't interfere with their spiritual nature. The ancient and the contemporary began to merge, creating stronger protections than either could provide alone. His original guardian bear remained his closest companion, their bond deepening with each passing day. Through their connection, Marcus learned to see the world in entirely new ways, not just the visible energy lines and hidden doorways, but the interconnected web of life that supported all sacred places. One morning, as snow dusted the mountain peaks, Marcus found himself standing at the spot where he'd first encountered his guardian. The bear's consciousness merged with his, sharing a vision of that moment from its perspective. Not just a random meeting, but the culmination of generations of preparation, bloodlines and destiny aligning at exactly the right time. He opened the journal, its pages now filled with the combined wisdom of multiple guardians, and wrote, "We don't choose this path. It chooses us." The bears recognize something that was always there, waiting to be awakened. They don't just protect the doorways, they protect our connection to mysteries we're not ready to fully comprehend, and in doing so, they protect humanity from its own premature reach toward powers that could destroy it. The true gift isn't the power we can access, but the wisdom to know why some powers need to remain bridged but separate. Like the bears themselves, we stand between worlds, ensuring neither spills too far into the other. Today, another group of veterans arrives. Some will become guardians, others will find different paths to healing. All of them are part of a story that began long before us and will continue long after. We're not just protecting doorways, we're protecting the very balance that allows both ordinary and extraordinary realities to coexist. Spring came to the mountain, bringing with it a sense of renewal that ran deeper than mere seasons. Marcus stood at the entrance to the newly established sanctuary, watching as his father hung the hand-carved wooden sign, "Warrior's Rest, a place for healing." Below it, visible only to those with awakened senses, ancient symbols glowed with protective power. The transformation of the second cabin and its surrounding grounds had been a labor of both love and necessity. What had once been his father's solitary hideout was now a gathering place for those called to the mountain's mysteries. The bears had approved each change, their ancient wisdom guiding the integration of modern comfort with sacred purpose. His guardian bear appeared silently beside him, their shared consciousness flowing with memories of other such places through history. Sacred sites had always needed outer guardians, people who could protect the physical spaces, while others maintained spiritual barriers. Now they were creating something new, a place where both aspects of guardianship could flourish together. Through their bond, Marcus sensed other bears and their chosen humans moving through the wilderness, maintaining the network of protective sites. The military had backed off after the confrontation at the vault, their failure to control the doorway's power forcing them to re-evaluate their approach. But both Marcus and his father knew they hadn't given up entirely. There would always be those who sought to harness powers beyond their understanding. The first group of veteran trainees was arriving today. Marcus watched them emerge from the tree line, each accompanied by their own bear guide. Like him, they had been chosen, called to something greater than themselves. Some would become full guardians, learning to walk the spirit paths and maintain the doorways. Others would find their purpose in the more practical aspects of protection, maintaining the grounds, guarding the physical sites, helping fellow veterans find their way to healing. His father joined him on the porch, the years of solitary vigilance finally easing from his shoulders. Together, they had expanded his research, combining ancient wisdom with modern understanding. The journal Marcus had started was now joined by others, creating a library of knowledge for future guardians. "They're coming more frequently now," his father said, watching another bear lead a veteran through the trees. "The doorways are calling for more protection." Marcus nodded, feeling the truth of it through his connection with his guardian. "The bears know what's coming. They're preparing us." The medicine pouch stones thrummed against his chest, resonating with the same energy that had first awakened his abilities. Through them, he could sense the doorways scattered across the wilderness, not just on this mountain, but throughout the world. Each one needed guardians, needed people who could understand the delicate balance between worlds. A young woman emerged from the forest, her military bearing evident despite her civilian clothes. The bear accompanying her was massive, silver-flecked, its energy signature marking it as one of the oldest guardians. Through their shared consciousness, Marcus's bear confirmed what he sensed. She carried the same markers in her spirit that had drawn the bears to his family 3 generations ago. "Welcome to Warrior's Rest," Marcus called out, both aloud and along the spirit path that connected all guardians. "You've been chosen for something extraordinary." The woman nodded, her eyes showing the same mix of wonder and recognition he'd felt when first encountering his bear. She could see the energy lines, sense the power flowing through the mountain. The bears had chosen well again. As more veterans arrived, Marcus felt the rightness of this new chapter. His father's solitary mission had evolved into something greater, a community of guardians, each finding their own way to serve the ancient purpose. The bears watched over them all, their wisdom spanning centuries, their protection extending to those who would help them maintain the balance between worlds. This was what the bears had been preparing them for all along, not just to protect the doorways, but to create a new generation of guardians who understood both the power and the responsibility of standing between worlds. The legacy would continue, growing stronger with each chosen protector who found their way to the mountain's mysteries. Marcus touched the welcome sign, feeling the protective symbols pulse beneath his fingers. His guardian bear pressed close, their shared consciousness embracing the future they had helped create. Some doors, once opened, could never truly be closed, but they could be protected, understood, and passed on to those worthy of their trust.